Hi, I'm going to show you how to use our Vergo Inventory Tracker. To begin with, please make sure that any cell highlighted in light orange will automatically update. So there is no need to update these tabs on our own. The ones that you will need to update will be the ones in white. Now, also keep in mind that you can keep the purchase ID or item ID numbers as is or change them to your liking. Make sure that if you do change them on all the tabs that follow. So if you change the item ID here, make sure that you update the item ID number here. Same thing goes with the warehouse name and the vendors. So vendor one, make sure you update on items under vendors here as well. So let's begin on the inventory tracker. So again, this is where the purchase ID would go. You would enter your ID item here, and then this would look up the vendor based on the ID item that you placed here. Next, you can choose from the drop-down menu under purchase status. If it's been ordered, shipped, or delivered, you can modify this by clicking on the edit button here and change this to your liking by modifying the name, the color, add or delete any item. If you make any modifications, make sure you always click on Done, Apply to All, and then click the X next to Data Validation Rules. Next, you can enter the quantity amount of the item, the unit price, and this will calculate the subtotal based on what we've entered in the next items. Here you would add the purchase date, you would add the date that you need the item by. This is going to calculate the estimated time in shipping based on what we've entered in the vendors and items here. Also the estimated delivery date, which is going to calculate the purchase date plus the amount of days that we've entered based on the shipping that this already takes based on what we have from our items and vendors. Next, we can choose where to ship this item to. So if this item is going to be shipped to warehouse 1, warehouse 2, or warehouse 3, you can modify that by clicking the edit button here. Always keep in mind that when you do change anything, make sure you click on Done, Apply to All, and X next to Data Validation Rules. And if you do change the name on the warehouse or when you update the name on the warehouse, make sure you update the names under this as well by clicking the edit button. Next, you have a space to put your tracking number for that item. Then you can continue with shipping date, delivery date, any image that you might have for the item, and then you have a space for notes at the end. In the next tab is the items tab. Again, if you modify the item ID here, make sure you update the item ID here as well. This is where you would put the item name or item description. You can add a photo of the item, and you can choose from this drop-down menu the status of that item, if it's in full inventory, running low, or if it's empty. You can modify that again by clicking the edit button here, change any color, name, add or remove any item. Once you've done that, always click on Done, Apply to All, and X next to Data Validation Rules. Here is where you could put the amount that you have on hand, the unit, again, any drop-down menu you can choose to edit with the edit button. Next, you could choose what vendor it's from or what vendor that item comes from. Again, if you change the vendor name, when you do, make sure you change the vendor name here as well with the edit button. Next, you have the average unit price, the estimated shipping days. This is where you would input everything manually. And then here's where you would put the purchase ID based on the purchase ID that we have in the inventory here. So it's item number 1, you would put purchase ID number 1 so you can keep track of that. And you can also place here what warehouse it's stored in. So if you need to find out what warehouse you have this item in or where you want to send it to, you can go to items and see, okay, that item is normally stored in warehouse number 1. And then you have an option or space for notes. Next, we can go to vendors, and this is where you would input the vendor information, vendor name, the point of contact, the phone number, email, the website. You can add here the items that are for each specific vendor and a space for notes as well. And last but not least, we have the warehouse tab, which is where you would add each warehouse name, add the address, the manager of the warehouse or who's in charge, the phone number, email, and you can add here the purchase inventory IDs. And then you have a space for notes as well. And that's how you would use our Vergo Inventory Tracker.